I'm Mel Stewart, and this is the GMM Podcast. Joining me today, we have a very good friend. We also have the founder and CEO of the second largest swimming club in the United States. And we have one of the biggest social media influencers in the swimming, Mike Culber. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Got a good connection. We're good to go.
We always want good connections. I've meant to do a series on club coaches and club teams that have been extraordinarily successful. I think the timing of that is really important right now as we're in this Olympic run-up, and we're also in a situation where we're trying to bolster swimming. Our registration's been a little flat for a few years, and we want to lean into the people that are successful. And you're at the top of the list. Before we get into this topic, I want to drop some news. I want to break some news. This is Swim Swam. We have to break news. If you're out there, you might think that, okay, who's the biggest social media influencer in swimming? It's Michael Phelps, the GOAT, 28 Olympic medals. Instagram is 3.7 million. We use that as one example. Second place, you might think it's Caleb Dressel or, I don't know, Katie Ledecky. In fact, you would be wrong. It's Mike Koleber. Mike, drop your handle on Instagram so everybody will follow you so they'll know what I'm talking about.
Great. Coach Mike Nitro.
And just briefly, we'll get into it later, but briefly tell me, when did you start this and why did you start it and what is the content?
I didn't do it for Nitro. I just did it because I was having some success teaching adults how to swim. And I teach a lot of adults, a lot of kids. We teach a lot of people how to swim at Nitro. But the success I had with adults, you dive a little deeper into the adult lessons and you find out that there's 54% of adults can't swim. I mean, 54% cannot swim. They couldn't save themselves. So the success I had teaching the adults, I was being asked by several folks at different times, hey, you need to go to India and help us out there. You need to go to China. You need to go to Malaysia. You need to go to Pakistan. And there's only one of me, and I'm pretty busy what I'm doing here with Nitro. And I didn't have the time to afford to get over there to do what I could do. So what's the next best thing? Could I replicate myself or duplicate myself with the power of social media and video and the connections and networks out there to be able to possibly teach somebody how to swim without really physically being there, but being next to them in the pool on an iPad or a phone, on a computer? Could I take somebody through the proper steps to learn how to do the basics of swimming? And that's how it started. And that was my intent. And my intent was, maybe sell a few courses here and there. I created an online swim course, step by step, takes them in a sequence that makes sense. And I've got a pretty effective way to speak to the adults it's understandable for them. And it's very basic. And I'm full of belief and I'm full of confidence. And once you give an adult a little bit of confidence, when they start believing in themselves, now they can really start to learn how to swim, because they may have had a bad experience when they were younger. They got thrown in. They were told never to go near the water. They were, oh, you're going to drown. Don't ever go there. And they may have had a personal experience in their life where they've known somebody who had a very bad outcome in the water. And so I understand all of that. And so I started creating videos to, I guess, get through to the folks who were most afraid. It started very basic, how to walk around the water in 3 feet, 4 feet deep and be comfortable. Just put your feet in, how to hold your breath, how not to get water up your nose. Things that, Mel, you and I, you even think about it because it's just instinct for us. It's instinctual at this point. But you got to think, for an adult who's been programmed and taught all their life to avoid the water, don't go near it, it's bad, or they had a super bad experience, there's some trauma. And if you can get through that, you can get through it and get them swimming, it opens up a whole nother chapter in their lives. And so that's what happened for me around the world, which is incredible.
We'll get into it a little bit deeper later in the podcast, but I should note that everyone probably knows Mike Culber, CEO, founder of Nitro Swimming, and seeing you at swim meets, maybe walking around deck. People, it's at some point, if you're in the sport and you're in this industry, you've interfaced with Mike. And of course, he's with his involvement with American Swimming Coaches Association. He's been around, but you probably haven't seen him with his shirt off. He looks like Poseidon. Are you 6'4"?
6'3", but I just turned 61 years old. So that's crazy in itself. 61. Good gracious. Where'd the years go?
But you're shockingly fit. I saw how fit you were and I went back to the gym. I literally saw you, came back home, talked to my wife and said, I'm going back to the gym.
Hey, glad to be an inspiration. Cool.
I want to dive into club swimming and your trajectory, because it's fascinating, and just, there's the horizon of Nitro Swimming's dynasty here in Austin, Texas, where you're based. But, take me to the roots of your sport and then to the genesis of Nitro and how you got started. Because I know that you had a winding, twisting journey.
I started swimming very, very young. I learned around 3.5 years old. And my dad was my first teacher, my first coach. Public pool called Tucker Pool in Flushing, Michigan. That's where I learned to swim in the summer. We got involved with the summer league team, myself, 2 older brothers, younger sister. A lot of the times that's the way it was back then. If one sibling did it, everyone did it, right? So I started swimming very, very young. We were all involved in things. My sister was in dance and softball and volleyball and swimming. And my oldest brother, Don, was football and hockey and swimming. And my brother, Thomas, was football and also baseball and swimming. And I was football, baseball, swimming, played the piano. You name it, we were involved. And that's just what we did back then. And it wasn't until 10th grade that I broke off and decided to do just one sport. So I didn't focus on swimming until just 10th grade. After high school, I went to Oakland University, Rochester, Michigan. Shout out to Pete Hovland, my coach for many, many years. I just retired 2 years ago. Phenomenal coach. He came from the Ernie McGlisco coaching tree. So I was fortunate enough to be in lectures in the mid 80s about laminar flow and planar flow and the Bernoulli principle and getting lactate tested in the mid 80s and hydrostatic weigh-ins where we were, composition of the body fat in the underwater tanks. This is all Oakland University, which was phenomenal to be going through that way back then, to just be exposed to the forward thinking of Ernie McGlisco and then again, Pete Hovland. So I was fortunate there. However, through, the ways of the world and God's message and plan for me, it was not to have an ending of the career on a high note. My worst meet ever was my last meet, my senior year national championships out at Belmont Plaza in Long Beach, California. The worst meet of my life. My arms were 300 pounds each. And when you're, 21, 22 years old, you can't fake it like you can when you're 11. When you're 11 years old, you could, have the flu, run around a building 10 times, jump on a starting block, and you could, talk somebody and get the best time. When you're 21, 22 years old, the body at that point doesn't really lie to you. And I just knew it was off. I missed the meet. It was just a horrible experience. For 10 years, I didn't go near the sport. I didn't go near the pool. I wasn't training at all. No swimming, no following. I missed the whole generation of the Pablos and the Beyondis and the Mel Stewarts and Barrowmans. I missed it all. And so in a corporate job several years later, about 10 or so, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what would I do if I didn't have to get paid? What would I do just to barely make a living? What would I love to do? That I wouldn't be watching the clock and I wouldn't be just worried about that. What would I just love to wake up to do every day? And it was teach lessons, teach swimming, and coach swimming. And so I saw an ad in the paper. I was living in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. Saw an ad in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution because back then we used newspapers, and open it up and it says swim coach. Like the only Sunday I look in a want ads, classifieds, and it says swim coach. Dunwoody Country Club in Dunwoody, Georgia. Close by. Sure. Walked in there. Within 5 minutes, I had the job offer. I took over a team that was 0-5 the year before. We went 3-2 that first year. The next year, 4-1. We shared the little district championship. So it was pretty fun. Good for the ego, right? At that same time, this is a funny story. One of the kids on the swim team, I'm working some private lessons at there called Seven Oaks, if you're in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I'm in Seven Oaks pool and thunder and lightning. And the dad says, we got to get my boy ready for the championship meet. Hey, there's a pool across the street that's indoors. Let's just go over there. So we walk across the street, we drive across the street, and we end up at Swim Atlanta, Johns Creek. Well, I didn't know anybody at Swim Atlanta. And I just walked in, and there's a manager there named Colleen. And I said, hi. I said, I'm Mike Koleber. I'm a former college swimmer. I'm here with a little guy right now trying to get a private lesson in. I'll pay whatever it takes. Could I borrow the pool for half an hour and get a little space? She says, you know what? Don't worry about it. Come on in. And this is 97, 90, probably 1997 or so, maybe 98, 97. And they didn't check anything. Didn't even check my ID. Didn't know who I was. I'm bringing a 9-year-old boy into this pool, and they let me just in the pool, and I'm teaching a lesson. So don't tell Chris Davis that happened, right? And so here I am working with this little boy, and swim coach, the head senior coach, walks out on the pool deck, sees me work with the little guy, and says, listen, I'm doing some meet entries right now. I've got a swim clinic coming in. I don't know, 8, 10, 12 kids coming in. To pay for this pool, the usage, tell you what, take the clinic for me. Again, doesn't know me, just sees that I'm working with a kid, a private lesson. And now I said, what do you want to work on? What do you want me to work on with these kids? He says, whatever you want. So I'm doing some dives and breakouts and, working on some things with these kids. And he walks back out about maybe 15, 20 minutes later and says, hey, my head age group coach just left to go take a job at Notre Dame. This is a guy named Jonathan Jennings. He says, JJ's leaving to go take a job at Notre Dame. I need a head age group coach. Are you interested? The timing was perfect. I said, sure. He hired me. So that's how it worked back then. Step by step by step happened like that. I'm coaching at Swim Atlanta. So now I get a chance to work under Chris Davis. And Chris Davis is a legend in club swimming, ultra successful. He's got locations everywhere. And what Chris taught me was it's possible. It's possible. It's possible to scale an operation and become a somewhat formidable force in swimming, right? Swim Atlanta. But the second person I want to acknowledge here, besides my dad, besides Pete Hellman, besides the high school coach, Roger Doyle, is Pete Reykjavik. Pete Reykjavik out in De Anza Cupertino Aquatics. I'm reading a newspaper article out of the San Jose Mercury News one year, and it says how they were teaching 2,000 kids a week swim lessons. And I went, no, it's a misprint. It's a misprint. There's no way somebody can teach 2,000 kids a week swimming lessons. And it quoted him, and it wasn't a favorable article about Pete at all. It was an article trying to say, how dare they do this, right? But again, Chris Davis gave me the belief that's possible to run a club team successfully. And Pete Reykjavik, you can run a swim school, 2,000 kids a week out of his various locations. So I saw Pete Reykjavik maybe 2 years ago at an Ask a World clinic. And he was in the audience, and I'm doing a talk. And there's Pete Reykjavik in the audience listening to whatever it is I had to say. And I looked at the name tag. I saw his face. I went, time out. Pete, come here. Stood up. I gave him a hug, shook his hand. And I said, you are the guy that led me to the belief that it's possible on swim school. And it's just what he's done is fantastic out there, right? But it made me believe. So I had Chris Davis, Pete Reykjavik to say thank you to, because those are like my mentors where I actually saw what they could do. Once the belief is planted, let's roll. Let's get the wheels going. So
let's put it into context really fast for anybody listening out there, because they might not have any context on it. Nitro, second largest club in the country, depending on the year. Do you mind sharing how many kids are registered?
I'm pretty transparent. In fact, anybody who's emailed me or calls me and asks, how do you build a pool? I'll make all kinds of time for those folks. So we right now, let's see, 1,100, another 900 there, 2,000. We're right around 2,000 registered USA kids. But the misnomer of that is they're not all ultra competitive, hyper competitive, fast kids. About 47 or so % of our program are what I consider casually competitive, the recreational type swimmer who wants to be exposed to USA Swimming. They want to learn how to do streamlines and flip turns and how to do a start, but they're just not married to the sport. And so it's a much easier sell to the parent out there who's got a million things going on with other kids that don't like swimming, that one that may, well, oh yeah, we're going to be here 6 days a week for 2 hours. No, I can't do 6 days a week for 2 hours, but they can do once, they can do twice. And so 47% or so of Nitro is once or twice a week swimmers. And so you think this Nitro is some huge, conglomerate of a program. Oh my gosh, they're so good. But it's not. It's half of our kids are just, they're activity swimmers that we love teaching.
But as a business, having half of those kids who are in that bucket, and we want them a part of our culture, that's business building, that's expansion, that's participation, that's buy-in, that's culture. A lot of the writers at SwimSwam, didn't swim at college. They swam 5 years year round, junior high into high school. They might have wanted to swim at college or probably, couldn't. It wasn't something that was going to happen for them, but they know culture and they care about the culture. I wanted you to put into context the scale of your club, which is a business. And also just note that Swim Atlanta that's a super, you're at the super club level as a designation. That's what USA Swimming would call you, as a super club. Swim Atlanta was a super club. We're going to bring Chris Davis on and talk to Chris Davis at a certain point. He's known as the godfather of the super club. Chris Davis started in 1978, and I think he started with 20 some swimmers and built it into the empire that it is. And he's had businesses and, lessons businesses, pool management businesses, I think he's out of the pool management business now, but you went through his funnel and you are that 2.0 iteration. And that's what I find fascinating. So on the topic of these kids that are, half of your registration, something that, our audience would care about is, how many get rolled up and become year-round athletes and move through that phase. And, how often does that happen and at what scale?
We recently had a high school graduate. He went on to, he's swimming for Lehigh now in Pennsylvania. He began in our summer rec program, which was a little 3-week that we do during June and July, once an hour a day, Monday through Thursday for 3 weeks straight. He started there. He went to our casually competitive once or twice a week groups. When you, as a coach, we as coaches, we can recognize body position, alignment, feel for the water, catch, those types of things. When you see it becoming easier for certain kids, then the conversation then next goes to the swimmer and to the parents. Hey, we noticed something here. We recognize something. Would you have an interest in maybe stepping this up a little bit to maybe a 3 or 4 day a week group? Would you? And a lot of times, so no, we're good. We've got gymnastics and we've got volleyball and we've got, so we leave a lot of it up. It's up to the parents, but we just plant the seed. Well, if you ever get bored and you want more than this twice a week program, please let us know. But I'm not going to harp on it or say, you got to go to this group, because a lot of times the kids don't want to go there. So what happens then when a swimmer gets placed in a group that's more times a week than they want to go? It's more times a week than the parents are committed to drive them. What's going to happen a number of months down the road, sooner or later, are usually two bad things, two just not positive, two negative consequences. Number one is they're missing practices. As a result of missing practices, they're going to go fall behind the group. They're not going to keep up with the nomenclature. They're going to lose some of the terminology. They just start falling behind. So what does that do to the swimmer? They want to quit sooner or later. And every night or day that parent drives by your facility and they realize that they're not going there that night, and that's the night that their swimmer technically has practice, that's another negative. So you're sticking 2 nails in that family. You stick them in the nails and you're thinking, negative, you know what? We just can't do this anymore. So we've just provided the market for them to do what it is they really truly want to do. If they decide and want to go further, we take them. How often does it happen, Mel? Hard to say. I would say maybe 10, 20, 30 athletes a year we're going to snag from that casual competitive groups and put them onto, the full USA. But still, you never really know. And we leave a lot to the parent. It's the market.
But you just right into that. You shared that, and you are rolling them up. I like the scale that you're rolling them up. I also like that Nitro is that place in the market where I can go and I can do this at the level that I want to do it. That's a service. You're providing a service where, I'll give you my daughter's an example. My daughter, long torso, ankles that flip over like this. She had the body type, but she didn't have the bandwidth, and she was like, it was fun for her. She would have stayed in that program at that level for a much longer time period. And she was, as you described, she stepped up too soon, probably felt pressure from me, felt it from my wife. And at a certain point, it wasn't worth it for her. So very, very insightful to know that those 2 nails were there. Interesting.
Yeah, neither of my 2 kids swam. They started swimming competitively, but they flushed out right away to do other things. I made sure that I wasn't their coach. Assigned other coaches to them. I wanted to stay black. I wanted to stay dad, not coach. And it just wasn't for them. And would I have loved for them to stay in the sport? Sure, because I would have seen them more. Because the life of a coach, especially when you're trying to start a club up, it's 24/7, nonstop. Your brain is on the whole time.
Something that I wanted is I was hoping that swimmers or young coaches or anybody who swam and they're a part of the culture, but they're thinking about coaching, I wanted them to tune into this podcast, because I wanted them to hear that a few specific pieces from you. But one was that you were out of it forever and you came back, and we know how you came back and we know how you got in. So take us from that moment where you became the age group coach at Swim Atlanta and that date through to Nitro and when you're launching and to the point where you're building your first pool.
Got it. It's funny. This is 100% transparency. And I was dating my wife at the time, And as a starting up as an age group coach in a club from Atlanta, wasn't being paid a lot. I didn't have health insurance, and I knew I needed to try to step up my financial game a little bit. And my parents were getting older, and I wanted to be one of those guys to help take care of my parents. And I'm figuring, how can I do that? Well, that private lesson dad, long story longer, he hired me as a director of recruiting and training in his company. He was taking private jets places, and he started looking at folks like that. What do you do to get a private jet? So he hired me, and I took it because the pay rate was way up in a whole other stratosphere of dollars that I wasn't used to. But I said, one caveat. I said, I've got to be able to coach swimming. No problem. He says, you'll be done at 5 o'clock every day. You can go coach. So as long as I could scratch that itch to coach, I was putting up with what I had to put up with during the day, not what I loved doing, because it provided me a pretty good income, but I got to do what I loved doing in the evenings. And so that was the conditions. And so I took it. Well, he transferred us out to Austin, Texas. I'm looking for by the way, my wife and I got married on a Saturday. That Monday, we're driving out to Texas. I got sent out, transferred, and she leaves her family. I leave everybody I know. We plop into Austin, Texas, and I'm looking for the swim centers. At the time, there weren't any other than the University of Texas. So I hooked up with a small little team, board run program. They hired me as an age group coach. I've got my hour and a half a night. I'm happy. I'm happy as a clam. Things transpired, and they came to me and said, we want you to be head coach of the program. At the same time, that corporate job was starting to tank a little bit. I could just see the writing on the wall. Companies having problems. I weren't paying some bills, customer complaints. I'm like, I don't want to be around this kind of stuff. That's going down. Head coach position offered to me. Again, not a lot of money, but it gave us insurance, health insurance. And so we took it. I took the position. And I remember calling my wife on the phone. I said, hey, I was just let go from that position. And after I already taken the head coach job for a couple of months. And she's like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? I says, don't worry. We got it. We're going to build a swim center. What? We're going to build a swim center. And I knew we were going to build a swim center. I just knew it. And so when they hired me as head coach, this board run program, I said, as long as you guys know, I'll take the head coach position, but I'm going to build a swim center. Indoor 50 meter. And when I took that job, Mel, you mentioned folks taking a coaching position. When Chris started, it was, I don't know, he said 10 or 20, whatever kids. We had 70 on the team that I took over as head coach, and they were $30,000 in the hole. They were going to close shop and just end the program or hire me as the head coach. They hired me, took a chance on me. So I took those 70 kids. We doubled it in 30 days. We doubled it because I did clinics every single Saturday morning for free. I put flyers in every pool in the area saying former NCAA All-American free swim clinic. Come check us out. And at that point, Mel, it becomes how do you make these kids feel? How do they feel during a clinic, after a clinic, and when they're going in their cars back home? How are you making them feel? So you can have the most accomplished coaches and former swimmers that become coaches on a pool deck who know so much about everything, training zones and periodization. And this is our 4-year, well, that's fine. All that stuff's good. But it really comes down to how are you making that swimmer, how are you making that child, that person feel? And if you can make them feel valued and make them feel like they want to come back, you've got yourself a home run. And that's what we decided to focus on.
If you were in this position, you're hired. I'm assuming this was a nonprofit team. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you're a nonprofit. You're young wife, and it's like, I'm doing this. I'm gonna take the leap. I'm gonna be a head coach. At what point, how did you transition from the nonprofit team into being an owner, an entrepreneur?
This is gonna get a little nasty.
That's okay. We like nasty.
You want to get some dirt on this one? I will say this. I believe most boards that start in a board run program, I believe most boards have good intentions. I believe it. However, all it takes when that board turns over, and whether it's every 2-year terms or a year and whatever, a year term, 3 year, whatever it is, the makeup of that board is so critical because one year you might have a swim team that's maybe dominated by, younger kids, more social type swim parents that want the ice cream outings and the pool parties. And that's great. That's all good stuff. And then a year or two later, you got a board with the majority of, let's say, junior national type qualifier, sectional type level swimmers that are looking to push the team in a much higher level of competitive stature. And so as the coach, you're having to play this game of navigating a ship where the rudder turns this way and it turns this way, and it can get frustrating. Now, couple that with if a board member, and brand new board members, you love them, right? They come in. What does a brand new board member most of the time want to do? They want to make their presence felt. They want to contribute. And so they start contributing. And it's in the meantime, you just, no, just sit and learn for a while. Just sit back, just observe, see how it works. We're growing a team. So the influences from this board started, I mentioned nails earlier, right? Nails were poking me. I had about 7 or 8 nails just poking me nonstop from this board run program. And when I told them when they first hired me as head coach, I said, we're going to build a swim center. Hey, that's great. That's just great. Well, I walk in one day for a board meeting every first Tuesday of the month. I walk in 7:30 at night. Tables normally set up where we're all see each other. But tonight was different. That night, there's one chair, big row of tables, and a bunch of chairs on the other side. And I walk in and I'm pretty self-aware, a lot of things. Okay, something's up. Something's up right here. And I sat down. And the first question was, hey, this swim thing that you're working on, how many of our kids are you planning to take? That was the question. How many of our kids are you planning to take? Now, I took a team of 70 kids. We added a few coaches. We had to add a few coaches because 2 years later, we're 370. 70 to 370 in about 2.5 years. We're now renting 2 other pools. We're growing this team, and the board is starting to stick me with their nails. And I said to my wife, Tracy, and we've got at the time, baby boy, Cal, who's now 24, and Kimberly's on the way. Here comes another baby on the way. And I told her, I said, hey, we're going to go and do this on our own. Because we had an old friend that always told us, if you're not with us, you're against us. And this board was no longer, as a majority of the board, we had a couple of board members that just really gung-ho, let's go, Mike, whatever you want to do. But there were enough that were causing the nails where I told Tracy, I said, we got to move off the nails and we got to do this on our own. And so we found an outdoor pool in the area, heated. They gave us a nice lease deal, and we broke away, and I resigned from the program.
What year?
This was 2004, I believe. 2004.
2004. One comment. This is a thing in swimming. Everybody talks about it. And the funny thing is that what we see with club run, nonprofit, parent run boards, we kind of see it with USA Swimming. And my opinion on this, and I want to know if I'm in the ballpark. It feels like when you're a coach, and it feels like you're at the epicenter of this, you're engaging everybody. You're engaging the athletes. You're engaging the parents. You're engaging all the coaches that are coaching. And it feels like the board is very myopic. It's like, it's my kid and it's the people that I talk to in my little niche. And I want what I want. And this is obviously going to be the best for everybody. And I know more than you know as the coach, even though you're interfacing with everybody. It seems like that happens a lot. Is that correct? Or is there a little...
That is also, that has been my experience as well. I'll say that.
You see, it's human beings lack awareness, and they think the entire world is just this little ecosystem that they're talking to back and forth.
There were so many moving parts to a team, and with clubs closing and clubs hurting financially and pools closing and the cost to operate facilities just does not going down. It just continues to go up. So you do have to kind of try to stay creative and try to stay ahead of things as best you can. But again, it does come down to, the product that you're delivering. So we broke off on our own, and we took about 100 didn't take. We started with 120 right then. We opened, and 2 years later, two years later, it was 2007, June, we opened up Nitro Cedar Park. So for 2 seasons, we did our own thing, and the coaching staff from the former team, they all came with me. That was nice.
2004, you're like, okay, I've got a vision. I've got to follow my vision. I can't be distracted from it. I know what I'm doing. Like 2006, so you're right at 200. You go to 2,000 in 2 years. Is that correct?
No. We opened up Nitro Cedar Park in June of 2007.
Okay.
Now, At that time, I'm guessing we may have had maybe 800-900 kids when we opened up Nitro Park. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I will say this. The day we opened, there was a line around that building of people wanting to register their kids for our swim school. Now, I had, for 3 years prior, hit almost every public pool around Austin teaching private lessons. I had a white long sleeve swim shirt that on the back had a website. At the time, it was splashswimming.com, and others do lessons. I teach swimming, and everywhere I went, people could see me. I was wearing gloves, I had a hat on, I was sunscreened up because I was just, you could turn into an alligator skin if you're in the sun all the time down here in Austin teaching. There were days that, I could barely make it home because I would coach long course in the morning, early morning practices. And then from maybe 10 o'clock, my calendar was just full because we had a baby girl coming. And since we went off on our own, we didn't have the health insurance to cover a delivery. And so I was going nonstop, sun up, sundown, and with a pile of checks to go take to the bank at the end of each week. And they didn't like me either because it's signs. I feel like Jerry Seinfeld, signing his little checks on that one episode where he gets a hand cramp. But if each week and you're driving home, you're just exhausted, but you're almost sleeping when you're driving, but you do what you have to do. And not once is there a complaint because there's nothing else I'd rather do. Here I am in a pool, even though it's 105 degrees outside, I'm in a pool and I get to go teach and coach swimming when there's people out there laying roof tiles and digging septic lines and, looking for minefields out in the Middle East, in the military. I figure my life is cake compared to what other folks put up with. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not a brain. I don't say lives other than swimming lives we do. But what do we do? We get to hang out with great kids and great families.
So when you were with the nonprofit team, parent run board, the first thing you said to your young wife was, we're gonna open a pool, and I want to open a pool. And you told the team, I want to open a pool. It sounds like that didn't happen. It sounds like you did this only when you went private. Is that correct?
Oh, no. It took a long time. My little napkin sketch, and understand, when you're renting outdoor pools, all I cared about was, what was my vision? My vision was just to own water. That was it. I wanted to own water, to call my own shots. That's it. It wasn't to host large meets. It wasn't to host a state championship. Nothing like that at all. It was just where a bathroom could be a bathroom that could be ours. We could have backstroke flags, but actually had a team name on the backstroke flag and no longer have to be a gypsy each year, not sure if you're going to get a lease renewed or not. So anybody who's renting a pool from somebody, I guarantee you, if you don't have something long-term locked up, it doesn't matter. Sooner or later, someone's going to pull the rug out from under you. It's going to be someone who doesn't like you. Someone who doesn't agree with how you run the program. It might be a maintenance person that gets in the ear of a supervisor enough times, you're out, and they'll put somebody else in. So me being a guy with 2 young kids, I'm thinking I need permanency. So my driving force, Mel, was permanency. So it took us 5.5, 6 years straight of trying to figure out how not to do it. You want me to write a book or create a movie on how not to build a swim center? I'm your guy. How not to do it. Because once you figure out how not to do it, that's your education. Now you got your MBA on how to build the swim center because of all the mistakes we made. It took us 5.5, 6 years from napkin sketch to finally getting doors open. And it was nonstop while I was working for the other program, while I was starting on my own with the other. Yes, it took 5.5, 6 years to get those doors open. Does that make sense?
It does. And if you talk to anybody, if you have any mentors in business, they always say, a part of dynasty building is, you want to own your dirt, and you said you want to own your water. An interesting side point on this was, what you're saying is you understand through experience, this is correct. At a certain point, if you're a gypsy, if you're renting, if you're just moving from place to place, you're gonna lose it because one person doesn't like you. During the pandemic, United States Swimming suffered, not because swimmers and coaches didn't want to come back and swim after they were sidelined from the shutdown. It was because we lost capacity. It's because where they were renting, that aquatics director decided, hey, I can program those hours for something else and not a swimming team. We lost capacity. I know the divide here. It's it's risk. You've got to be a risk taker. You got to be creative, and you got to believe in yourself. You took on a lot of debt to do this. These are huge. Can you share any insight into the scale of the debt you took on to do this?
Well, it's way back in the early days we had one of our swim dads was the Harvard MBA, much smarter than I'll ever be. And he drew up my performance. And I told him what I thought we could do. And he came back a few weeks later with all his reports. And he said, Mike, I'm really sorry. You can't make this happen. It's just mathematically, it's not possible. You can't service the debt with labor and insurance and taxes and mortgage and everything else you have to do on this facility, which was Nitro Cedar Park. And back then, Mel, Nitro Cedar Park was $4.5 million total at the end when it was all said and done. This is 07. We opened up in June of 07, was $4.5 million. It's nothing fancy. It's not a Taj Mahal. It's a metal building with some garage doors with 2 big holes full of water, a swimming pool, 25 yard by 50 meter, and a lessons pool. It's 25 feet wide and 59 feet long. I would have loved to have a 25 yard pool, but the footprint wouldn't allow it. So here I am in a 59 foot by 25 foot lessons pool. Today, that 59 foot by 25 foot lessons pool sees over 2,000 kids a week taking lessons in that one location. So I want to thank again, Pete Reykjavik, for showing me that it's possible, not over several sites. That's one location. We've got 2,000 kids a week taking lessons right now in Nitro Cedar Park. And here we are, 18 years later, I guess? Is that what it is? Yeah, 18 years later. So yeah, there's risk.
Like pool. You talk about the pool like it's just a hole and it's another hole and this and it's a metal building. I've been in a lot of pools throughout my entire life, and it was the feeling that I felt when I first walked in there. I forgot what it was. I think it was just like, hey, Mel, come on up and see us. Come on up and take a look. I'm like, hey, can I shoot some B-roll? I've got this media company. Can I shoot some B-roll? I need some B-roll of some video of a pool. And you're like, come on, come see us. Come say hello. Like show up, and you put a t-shirt on me, and it felt like I was at home. It definitely felt like swimming family. So and that has to hold a special place in your heart, that the location.
Nitro Cedar Park, we have Nitro Bee Cave, which was $6.5 million. And that was May of 2011. We opened up Nitro Kyle this past January, and that's way up there. It's over $13 million for that location. And part of it is just inflation. A pool today costs less than it'll cost tomorrow. And a pool the next day is going to cost more than it did tomorrow. So that's just how it works. It's just always going to get more expensive. That being said, you've got puddles over on the pool deck at Nitro Cedar Park. There's just bleachers out there. Very primitive. Just a concrete deck. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. And I'm sorry to the families at Nitro Bee Cave and the families at Nitro Kyle. I'll tell you this face to face when I see you. My favorite location is still Nitro Cedar Park because of the energy and the fact that you've got a lessons pool and about 8 feet away is the big pool. And there's just a noise level in there, and it is energy. And probably one of my most proudest moments ever, besides my mom and dad seeing these locations before they passed away. One of the proudest moments I had years ago, I was trying to get Eddie Reese to come see us. Just come see us. Just come. And he shows up one day. I didn't realize this right away. I'm coaching a group way across the pool, and it's blowing and going. 23 lanes. It's just happening. Lessons pool's going crazy. And I see Eddie Reese walk in the front lobby area. You walk in on the pool deck. There's not even a lobby. Sorry. You walk in, you've been there. So Nitro Cedar Park, you open up a glass door and boom, you're standing on a pool deck. And he stands there for a while. I look across and, oh my gosh, that's Eddie Reese. That's Eddie. And he whispers something to our coach that's next to him. And I asked the coach, I said, Eddie walked in and just stood there for a while. And then he said something to you. What did he say? And Eddie said these words, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's supposed to look like. And to me, that meant more to me than any banner, any award, trophy, whatever. It just to hear Eddie Reese thinking that about our program to me was like just a big time nod that really still this day still gives me goosebumps.
I had a feeling you might like that location. That might have a special place in your heart. The Bee Caves location, the Kyle location is minutes from my house. Bee Caves is beautiful. Kyle is gorgeous. You recently, there was an event. I think that, pet food company, Newlet Pet Food, the CEO and founder swam at Boston. He's a swimmer. He's like, hey, can we have this moment? So Caleb came down and gave a little talk at Kyle, which you emceed, which was a whole lot of fun. I was slack jawed walking into that facility and then going upstairs to the offices and then seeing how large your staff was. This is a big operation. How many people are working for you right now in the Nitro Swimming?
I got to think about 150 is what our number is right about now, 150. Maybe a little higher, maybe a little north of that because of few summer seasonal lessons going on. But we're average about 150 staff.
And I should have said this early on. Your wife's a co-founder, and my wife's a co-founder in my business. And it might be important for people to understand the context of working with your spouse. You know, for me, it's like this is the person you trust more than anyone in the world, and my wife will step in front of a bullet for me. What is that relationship like, and what is she lording over at Nitro?
I tell you what, it's 24/7, and it's really hard to separate. You know, whether you're home or in one of the pool's locations, it's 24. And it's tough. It is. I'll be honest. It's very, very tough, very difficult. But she brings such a valuable skill set to the table that I don't have. And I said, I got the easy part. I'm Captain Stubing of the Love Boat. I'm out there with the families, greeting them, saying hi, making sure the little kids aren't crying with the goggles. I just do what I love doing, which is try to make kids smile and give them a good experience about this sport, whether it's learn to swim or team. She does the things that are thankless. She's behind the scenes. I can't tell you today, Mel, what our mortgage is. I don't even know. I think I know one of our banks that we're using. I don't know that stuff. I don't know our taxes. I don't know our insurance rates. I don't know who our insurance carriers are other than our USA policy we have with USA Swimming. I don't know that stuff. I don't know our labor right now, total labor expenditure each month. She knows all of that. She's got an eye for it. She's got an ear for it. She has an interest in it. She should have been either an accountant or an attorney or both because she's that good at what she does. I am horrible at that kind of stuff. I want to just coach and teach. And so that's why I get the captain's due. One boat. There's somebody else paying the bills and everything. She does all the thankless things. I do the fun stuff.
It checks out. This is a consistent thing. I think that the right spouse can make or break success in a lifetime. Yep. Absolutely, 100%. Right now, when I think about teams that are private, and just so people out there listening, you might care about metrics in swimming. United States Swimming is right at about 2,700 clubs. Our capacity's down since the pandemic. We were at 3,000. 577 clubs of the 2,700 are privately held. 813 are some hybrid version of that, meaning that there's some portion, the Learn to Swim could be private. Maybe it's a nonprofit swim team, but this holdco private company owns the pool and the dirt and they rent from it. So there's definitely an entrepreneurial spirit that lives inside our sport. But the version 2.0 is that versions of, it's the Mike Culber. Mike Culbers of the world. I don't know how many of you exist in our ecosystem where you're like, I'm building pools. I'm going to own my dirt and I'm going to build out this lessons program. How many lessons? You said 2,000 a week in one location. What are you doing per month overall?
We've got now a little over 4,000 kids a week at our 3 locations. So 4,000 kids a week are taking lessons in our facilities of our 3 locations. 4,000.
That would make you have to be the largest lessons provider in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, probably in the area, but there's a lot of chains out there. They're nationwide that are private equity funded. A lot of them, but they're growing. They're plopping them up. Boom, 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 boom. Strip malls, you'll see them everywhere. And I'm not sure if I got to think that someone out there is out swimming us in terms of numbers.
I have an opinion about this. My opinion is I would rather the swimming coach from our culture be the de facto person who is going to be teaching lessons in a particular market. So just, small town USA, mid-major city in Kansas. I do like the idea of the swimming coach being the person with the expertise saying, hey, look, if you want to learn to swim, you come and do it in our home. I don't know how I feel about the strip mall, large scale franchises. I understand it. I like it when my peers or coaches or swimming peers own those franchises.
Right.
But you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do actually. I was talking with one of our swim dads who left one of those locations to come see us at Nitro Kyle, and they drive quite a ways to get there. And I just talked to him on the pool deck. What's today, Thursday? Tuesday, 2 days ago. And he stopped me and he said, I really appreciate the fact that you're taking that time to work with these kids who are just starting out. This was one of our rec programs. Kids can barely get across the pool. And I've got them on the 4th day now. They're already doing side breathing, rolling breathing freestyle in the 4th day. So I really push hard, but there's that, that line you cross of don't cross the line of pushing too hard. How hard could you push them right there? But he stopped me and he said, I said, what's your background? He said, well, I coached, I swam and I coached and I taught. I said, where'd you swim? He said, University of Tampa. So, it's an NCAA level swimmer, high level guy from the 90s, and was complimenting our program. And that's why he made the switch with their 2 sons, because I won't call us purists, but we're swimmers and we get it. And he left a private equity type place because the people running it weren't swimmers. I think a lot of folks get into the swim lesson business because they're deciding, let me say, daycare, little gym, car wash, dry cleaner. Hey, the swim thing looks pretty good. Let's jump in it. And so you don't get the people who really have that background that really, really, truly appreciate the learning steps it takes to get someone familiar with water. And it's going to tickle your ears when you're on your back. The things that we went through as learning how to swim, we get it. We know what it feels like when a wind comes in, a breeze comes in, and you've got water. We spent how many years things. How about this? Remember, I think I'm too old for you on this one, but there was always a lot of smoking in buildings. And when you're swimming in an indoor pool somewhere, I don't care. This is back in Michigan high school days. I could tell you the moment a smoker walked in that building, probably, almost a quarter mile away, because you smell that go right above the water. Remember that as a swimmer? I'm like, that irritates the life out of me. So anyone smoking on our property, I pick it up in a heartbeat. I am out there in that parking lot. Hey, there's no smoking anywhere near this parking lot. So those things irritate me.
When I think about swimming, I think about coaching, I think about that compared to other sports, something I feel like is a badge of honor is that it's let's just say you are a mid-major city, 400,000 people in Iowa, and there's a team there. That coach is full-time. They're on deck. They're doing it all the time. They have a level of mastery that is pretty high. And if I have a kid that's 8 years old and they want to play football or swim or play basketball, if it's basketball or football, they might have, John Doe who played in high school, and maybe they're going to coach a little bit there. And I wish that at our governing body level, we rewarded and distinguished coaches in these markets and told that story more. But anyway, that's a thought that I have just when I'm driving around and I'm in my brain thinking. But this is your world. How do you feel about it?
I just know that we have an appreciation for what we went through. I mean, I told you I'm 61 now. When I first started swimming, there were no goggles, right? So we swam workouts at 8, 9 years old, and they were pretty long workouts back then because it was the 70s. They're kind of, put a lot of yards on you without goggles. And I remember getting out, and all of us were just barely see. You're just red. You having to cry to try to make your eyes feel better. Those kinds of things I just love. I remember heaters being out in the pools. When the heater goes out, guess what we did? We swam anyways, right? And if a coach said we're doing 20 of whatever, you do 20 of those. You don't stop at 19. And I just love how it has developed us as humans, individuals, as former swimmers. There's a brotherhood and a sisterhood that non-swimmers just wouldn't understand. And I don't mean that to sound elitist at all. It's just a special bond that swimmers have and there's no better feeling that you get from climbing out after a swim workout. There's not a better feeling in the world than after a swim workout, climbing out and maybe hitting those showers. And that's just something I think we know because we've experienced it. And it's just a feeling that I remember, Mel, actually, there was a guy in Kingsport, Tennessee that swam next to me. I sent you a picture of him. Either one of your former teammates or maybe he coached you or something. Remember that? It was over holidays. I sent you a picture of a guy and he swam with you a swim in Charlotte. And Here's what I said to him. He told me, he said, swimming is something you can always do, and it doesn't matter what age you are. You can be whatever age you want to be when you're in that pool. And so for me at 61, there are days I still feel like I'm 8. I swim 3 times a week. I'm getting ready to swim a 5-mile swim up in Michigan, the Mackinac Bridge, July 26th. And it's the feeling of the water now. And you hear it around your ears and your thought process, and you start thinking, you start solving your problems. Your back feels better. Swimming, there's just so many great benefits to it, right? I'm more excited today about swimming, I think, than I've ever been. And that's really kind of cool at 61 to be doing something that I'm just still so excited about.
Every day that you swim is better than the days that you don't.
Yes.
Yes. It does something to you chemically and hormonally, taking the weight off your joints in this weightless environment. You don't have to swim. You can just float. You can just play. You'll feel better. And
again, in full transparency, there are days that are a little bit tougher than others to make that first step. But that way we say discipline is greater than motivation, right? Discipline is more important than motivation. So the days you're not really motivated, the discipline has to kick in. So just, you got to jump in from a couple lengths and then you're rolling.
Well, I think it's magical. I think we're selling something magical. I think we're selling something that's like gold. Yeah. And I would like to see us sell that at scale nationally and globally, because it is a gift. Yeah. So let's bring this back to this conversation. I heard you say you're 4 million into one location, 7 into another, 13 into another. You're sitting on an enormous amount of real estate. The scale of your team is 2,000 plus 4,000 lessons a week. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wow. It's just enormous. So you are a large company. Do you keep growing? Can you keep growing? Or have you reached a point of saturation in the Austin market? You're not in the Austin market. You pushed out to Kyle. You're in Cedar Park, but I mean, in this marketplace, can you go further? What's the future hold?
No, we could. One thing that I'm holding fast on is we don't operate on Sundays. Every once in a while, we'll do if it's a championship meet type warm up, a weekend before a championship, we'll bring the kids in for maybe a fun little, relay exchanges, pizza, that kind of thing. But we don't open on Sundays. So 1/7 of our capacity is not even tapped. And I'm going to try to hold on to that as long as I can to give us that day off where the pool gets a chance to recover and everyone else gets a chance to recover. So when Monday comes around, you're starting fresh on a Monday. So we don't operate on Sundays. We have room for growth. Absolutely. We've got the space for it. Nitro Cedar Park is pretty saturated right now for us there. But Nitro BK, we have room. Nitro Kyle, obviously we have room. But Nitro Kyle, I finally have a 25-yard lessons pool for the first time. So I'm so excited. 25 yards long. We've got really big capacity down there for what we hope is going to happen in the future for us there.
So, all right. So I'm hearing you can grow. So let's bring this back to my original motivation for talking to you. And rather than going out to somebody else, let's put this question on you. You're 61 years old. If you could go back to Mike at 34, who's just tripped backwards in the universe, delivered you the head age group position at Swim Atlanta, what would you whisper in his ear?
What? As coaches, we constantly beat the drum to our swimmers of not getting on that best times, not a best times roller coaster. Best times, not a best time. Best time, great swim. Oh, I didn't get a best time. I'm horrible, right? We always tell the kids to do this. Enjoy the process, part of the journey, long-term focus, right? As coaches, as young coaches, and at 34, I want to consider myself a young coach at 34, right? I was a little bit more like this. In fact, I was a lot like this. Great meet. Oh yeah, coach, you're the greatest, whatever. Oh my gosh, they didn't do too well, whatever. Oh, and you take things so personal. You think that the kids are not going to survive if you're not there for a certain night at the expense of your own family. Don't do that. So if I were to talk to earlier version of myself, I would say, you're not this, you're this. If the average person operates here, and I've heard this expression a few times now in the last year or so, be more of a thermostat and less of a thermometer. I was more of a thermometer in my earlier years of coaching, and I've become now, I think, more of a thermostat. More grounded, long-term. Hey, people are going to love you. People aren't going to love you. That's okay. I'm true to myself. I appreciate what I do. I enjoy what I do. and I'm going to do whatever I can do, as much as I can do for as many people as I can. I'm not for everybody. Nitro's not for everybody. The coaches out there listening to this, you aren't for everybody. But you can't take this personal anymore. Good meet's not a good meet. Good season, not a good season. You should do this. Super Bowl coaches, they win the Super Bowl, the next year they don't make the playoffs. They're not changing their program. They just stay consistent, most of them. So that's what I would tell my former self is thermostat, not thermometer. And when you have to have the choice, family first. I would go family first.
What's fascinating is that
somebody else to cover the practice. Sorry.
No, I got that. I got your tail end there. You tripped into this 34 years old, career change. I want to be happy again. I want to find something where I have purpose. There are a lot of coaches who come out of college and start coaching, and by 34, they're a head coach at a D1 program. We have people as young as 34 who are head coaches at top 20 D1 programs. It's happened. We've seen that happen.
Yep.
I've witnessed it in the last 13 years. You were just starting out, but the trajectory you've been on from 34 to 61 is building a real business. Do you see yourself as how much of Mike Culber is the entrepreneur, and how much of Mike Culber is the swim ambassador and swimming coach and person who just loves the sport?
All right, more shout outs here right now. Shout out to Mick and Sue Nelson, who are the ones who put on the Build a Pool conference every so often. I attended a Build a Pool conference way back when. I'm in the front row, sit next to Harry Canales, Fernando's brother. I sat in the front row and my eyes were this big, and I'm, watching what they're telling me. In the very last slide that Mick and Sue presented at this conference, I'm not sure if they still use the slide or not, but it showed two animated pictures. And the first one was a person in a suit signing a check over and over, signing a check, signing a check, signing a check. And down below it was a swimmer with a bunch of medals on their neck, and they were dripping with water. And Mick and Sue Nelson burned this into my head. They said, you won't get these if you can't do this, meaning you won't get the medals if you can't pay your bills and run a business. And so entrepreneurial, I sold flower seeds when I was a kid. I sold greeting cards so I could get a telescope in the back of the magazine. I was the guy that went door to door. I've always been one of those people that looking for that better way to do things and find out what you love. And if you can do what you love doing, the old expression is you'll never work a day in your life. I love what I'm doing. Yes, there's stress. Yes, there's some headaches, but all in all, I love what I do. Love it. So what's my exit strategy? Probably dropping dead, on a pool deck. I don't have an exit strategy to want to, sell Nitro. We get emails several times a week. Hey, we're from New York and we got LA and we're this private equity. We want to buy Nitro. Why would I sell it? If I ever won the lottery, what would I do? I'd coach swimming and teach swimming. If I ever retired, what would I do? I'd want to coach swimming and teach swimming. So the way I look at it right now is I've retired and I won the lottery because I'm doing what I love doing anyways. And I was telling my brother this yesterday because it was my birthday, and he, called me, wished me happy birthday. And I said, Don, I think part of the secret is objects in motion stay in motion. And I feel like I'm 25. I don't sound like it right now because of the voice, but I want to keep on moving and just keep on doing things. And if there's better ways to do things and figure it out, I'm always reading. I'm always on the sites of the positive sites. I'm careful what I feed into here. Mel, I haven't listened to a newscast, news, I don't know, probably the last year and a half or 2 years, I suppose. I just don't. I don't have time to put that in here because I've got too much to try to give to our families. And I'm trying to figure out every night when I'm driving home, I'm thinking what went right, what could have gone better, where do I got to make a change? And even though we're a pretty big operation, I would turn like a jet ski. It's a freighter, we'll change it. And sometimes that frustrates some of our folks because they don't like change. But when there's things are evident that it has to be done differently, we got to do it differently. And if you don't stay agile, you're going to be swallowed up and be a statistic. I want to be a better statistic. So that helps you answer that question.
I think that was a great answer to the question. So let's flip it a little bit. Let's dial it. Let's change the point of view on it. If you're talking to a 25-year-old kid, they're out of college, they've coached for 2 or 3 years. And, they're thinking, I would like to be a Mike Culber. I'd like to go to my hometown and build that business. What would you say to them, knowing the journey that they have in front of them?
I would start in a pool situation and start building your team. Honestly, to go back to that strip mall example that we used, when run by the right people, I think it's the way to go, because you can develop a pretty positive cash flow. And once you start getting the reputation, if you can keep delivering what you need to deliver every single day, you're going to begin to outgrow your current box, your current sandbox. You need a bigger sandbox. By then, you've already established yourself with a pattern with the local banks. And I do, like, all three of our banks that we've used now, they're local. We use local banks, and it's about relationships. So it's important to establish that relationship, pay your bills on time, start growing. They'll start noticing you. I would certainly learn to swim. And then I would start with the competitive casual type offerings. And I would take it from there, because when you really start factoring, go to any gym nowadays, like any gym, really, it's hard to find a racquetball court nowadays. And it's hard to find a handball court, right? But it's easy to find a spin room or a Pilates room or a group exercise room. Why is that? Because they took the space that used to only have 2 people in it. And now they say, wow, I can use this same space. I can put 30 bikes here, or 30 people. It really comes down to dollars per square foot. There was a soccer place in town here that went out of business, and they would have 11 kids playing on this giant soccer field at a time. 11 kids. I call it beehive soccer because my kids were involved in it. They have little bees buzzing around a beehive. And they came to me and they said, hey, we need some help. We're not really doing too well. And I said, well, take your soccer field and divide it up into areas with barriers and teach skills and do mini games, 5-on-5, 11-11 if you'd have to, because they're little kids. They don't need an entire soccer field, because it comes down to dollars per square foot. And if you're not able to pay your bills, back to the Mick Nelson, Sue Nelson slide, you can't pay the bills. You're not going to have the swimmers at the end, because you're going to be out of business. So that's probably the advice I give.
Dollars per square foot. I'm a young coach. This, just to recap, began, learn to swim, rec swimming, the beginner swimmer, build from there. Mindful of dollar per square foot. I like that a lot.
Well, walk into any third grade class, walk into any classes of a third graders and ask the question, hey, who here loves to swim, right? Pretty much every hand's probably going to go up, except for maybe that one kid who can't swim yet. But then you ask the next question. All right, how many of you 9-year-olds want to spend the next 15 years of your life going 6-7 days a week, including Christmas and spring break and summers and meets every other weekend, and saying goodbye to your bike riding time after school and say goodbye to everything else? You're going to get one kid with the bleached hair that already does it. So for me, it's where's the market? And so if you can do that, you can stay in business. And there's one more suggestion to college programs. And I'm telling you, college programs, they're on the chopping block. They are on the chopping block. College swim programs. An athletic director today, they look at that balance sheet and anything with parentheses. You know what their job is? Get rid of the parentheses. That's what modern day athletic directors are across the country. And I can't blame them, right? They're trying to run a business too. College is a business. I suggest this. You got space somewhere on campus, somewhere on the pool deck, throw an above ground pool in there. An above ground pool, 20 feet by 20 feet, whatever, and run seasonal lessons. Pay your swimmers a pretty good wage to teach lessons. Tell me, Mel, you mentioned the city in Iowa, mid-major, 400,000 people. Tell me which parents in that city in Iowa, the University of Iowa, they cut their program. There's a good example, right? Great pool. There's college programs in Iowa. Tell me what parent in that area near that college campus would not want their kids to learn how to swim from the NCAA swimmers that can learn a little bit about teaching. You just now taken your program, parentheses, no more parentheses. An athletic director is not going to care as much when they don't see, they're not costing us money. Just leave them. Let swim and go. Fund your own programs, college coaches. Fund it. That's my
for a very long time at the governing body level, our chief executives in all the non-traditional sports cried that we didn't get government support, and other nations get government support and pay, and make a donation to our foundation. And that was not true. at scale, we've gotten supported enormously by state universities. So taxpayers are paying for it. They're paying for it. And we know that our funnel to the elite status flows through those top 20 programs, which I find interesting. Yeah. And now we're staring down a gun barrel. Yep. And I'm like, well, we weren't really honest with ourselves, were we? And so I wish that we had a Mike Culber saying, hey guys, program per square foot 20 years ago. Because that's you're back to it, program per square foot. That's very interesting. Do you remember a time when USA Swimming used to have a division where, hey, I want to build a pool. I'm a club team, and they had support and services in house. Do you remember that?
They did. I'm pretty sure. Now the build a pool conferences that I went to, it's funny. The one that I went to, and I was a spectator in the front row. They had a facilities construction. His name was John McElargy. Actually, was the guy that was in charge of facilities programming. Facilities planning and construction. And he had that background, and he was in the back of the room at my first Build a Pool conference. And he was still there when I was speaking at the Build a Pool conference after we opened up Nitro Cedar Park. And for another time, I've got a story about that one too, unless you want to hear it right now.
Let's hear it.
Oh, I'm speaking at the Build a Pool conference after we built Nitro Cedar Park. And the first person to speak was a guy named Mike Curran. Good dude. He runs the Raleigh-Durham Triangle facility in North Carolina. Beautiful facility. And he was up there, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but he had photos of his facility. And he said, there's our competition pool, 50 meter, 25 yard. Here's our therapy pool. Here's where we do our lessons. And oh, by the way, and here's our climate controlled spectator area. So we host the North Carolina State Championship. The spectators stay cool, but the swimmers stay warm on the pool deck, and everybody in the crowd is going, ooh, right? And then he showed his balance sheet, and he said, here's my balance sheet. And in parentheses was $600 and some thousand, I believe. And he says, that's what we lost last year. He said, I don't know if you know much about balance sheets, but if I have a couple more years of that, we're not going to have this facility anymore. That was sobering, very sobering. The next person up was Lori Klatt. Lori Klatt runs in Fresno, I believe, Fresno, California. She's got a Swim America program out there, very successful swim school owner. And she had just built a facility. And she shows some pictures, and she says, oh, here's my mosaic tile. Here's my manta rays. Here's my little dolphins up here. There's my porpoises, all the sea turtles. And she says, I was out on the job site every single day when they were building that facility. And she said, I told them, if there's even one puddle on this pool deck, you're not getting paid. Right? So she's done. I get up there and talk. And I say, first of all, if my facility, Nitro Cedar Park, had a nickname, I'd probably call it Puddles, because there's puddles everywhere. And anyway, we kind of laughed. And I said, if I brought my balance sheet and showed you my balance sheet, there's one thing you're not going to see on my balance sheet, parentheses. There's no parentheses on our balance sheet. And that got Mike Curran's attention. And Mike Curran and I spent pretty much the whole night talking about how he should be programming his facility. He was renting his facility, the competitive lanes, to two different teams, $10 or whatever a lane per hour, which is kind of normal. If your pool's given to you, or you got some rich donor that's going to buy a facility for you, awesome. You don't have the worries like I have. The worries I have is this is self-funded, and I owe the SBA, and I owe banks, and I owe one major investor a lot of dollars every single month, no matter what. So Mike Curran, I said, hey, let's take the average cost for a person to swim at a program, and not to swim, an average person paying for gymnastics. What do they pay per month for once a week? Figure it out. What does the average piano lesson cost per week for a student? T-ball, soccer, basketball, whatever it is, right? Yet here's swimming, boom, paying $4 or $5 an hour for their water time, when somebody else is paying who knows what for the other sports. So for some reason, swimming has always had this take a vow of poverty, and therefore you're not going to be able to pay your coaches enough. Therefore, well, we can't do it as swimming. It's how we got to make it affordable. It can still be affordable, but it better be at least a value of what the other things are in that area. So Mike Curran, for $10 an hour per lane, was renting a lane out at his facility. I could put 6 kids in there. They're going to pay $15 an hour, $60 a month for a once a week type program. What's 15 times 6? 90, right? Give me 2 lanes of those kids, 180 for the hour. Pay a coach $25 an hour. I'm netting 155, right? No, I'm sorry, 165. $165 net for those 2 lanes that he was getting $20 for. Multiply that by however many hours you can do it, times your 6 days a week, whatever it is. Now, what do you get rid of? There's no more parentheses. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying dollars per square foot. And I'm not apologetic for it at all. We don't have swimathons. We don't have fundraisers. I don't have to have pancake breakfasts. I don't have to do that stuff where I don't have to do. I price it accordingly. I run it like a business. If the parents want to be as involved as they want to be, they want to time up my meets, fantastic. If they don't because they're busy and they've other things to do, they can drop off and pick up. That's fine. I come back in providing at a professional level.
This is a mass of the mass and how to do it. I love it. I promised that we would come back to your social media because I think a lot of people are curious about that. And when I found out about it, I made a joke and I said, look, I'm going to shut down Swim Swam. I'm going to come work for you because you're a media dynasty now. That is extraordinary to have a reach of 3 million on 2 accounts and doing adult swimming lessons. It sounds as though you're monetizing it to a degree online. And where do you see that going? Because adult swimming lessons is a big deal. And I've seen master swimming try to tackle it, but I don't really think that it's had a lot of penetration. This is, where are you going to take it?
Well, I'm just excited. Like I told you earlier, we talked, I think last week or so, Mel, the ability, having the reach to help someone at least have the belief enough to take the first step to actually take lessons. They see a video of mine. They see a guy who's 6'3", 210 pounds floating in deep water without using my arms or legs, just by breath control and putting my ears underwater and showing that nose and mouth stays out. And they're starting to think, maybe I won't drown. Maybe I could do this. And they take the next step and they seek somebody local to teach them how to swim. I love it. The fact we have one more swimmer, that's a win. That's a win. But I get emails and messages and posts of people who've been out and they've actually had their lives saved because they incorporated a technique of relaxing in the water and not panicking because they saw my videos. That's just ultra gratifying. We had a family a number of years ago in Nitro that went out in ocean and a riptide caught three of the daughters, little triplets. The triplets. We got the mom crying. She says, I'm crying as I write this saying, thank you. My daughters knew to flip over on their back until we could get them help. And those are the things that we hear that, yes, is this impactful? Absolutely. Do I treat this like a game? Not at all. Is it fun for me? Yes. I love it. I love making the videos. I like talking into a camera and realizing that someone else is going to actually watch it and hopefully like the content. I think I mentioned earlier, I really try hard to be as authentic as possible. This isn't fake. It's not staged. It's not even scripted. My son's on the iPhone. He records me. I got a little hook that I say, and then I ad lib everything. And usually it's on one take because it's what you and I already know, Mel. And I've got a pretty direct way of saying certain things to certain people. And I think it struck a chord with a number of folks to say, hey, I like what this guy's sending out there. I'm going to listen some more. And I have an online course that goes along with these videos, but it's really opened my eyes to potential reach to go around the world. Our number one country is United States in terms of followers go. Number 2 is India. Number 3 is Nigeria. And helping people around the world that don't have access, let's say, to good instruction, if I can be a catalyst for that, that's really, really cool. So yeah, I do find myself more nowadays taking that step back and saying, this is really cool. You know, it is really cool. So the video that went nuts, that went crazy, that started it all, was where you take the blue jeans. We all learned it in life-saving class, or anybody's in the service, they learn it. Take your blue jeans off, tie the legs together, splash some air bubbles in the waistline. You fill the legs up, put your head through it, you lay back, you got yourself a life jacket. I did that. And Jennifer Garner, the What's in Your Wallet lady on TV, she happened to see it. She happened to like it, and she happened to share it to 5 million followers. And I started seeing my account just start going tick, 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 start growing up. And ESPN Sports Center contacted me a couple weekends after and said, hey, can we put this on our website, that video? Sure. Massimo, who's a big social influencer guy, posted it. Science Girl posted it. So people that are pretty strong followings had posted some of my content, which is great. I did one, nothing really is too special, but maybe 3 weeks ago, And my social media folks that helped me with the account said in 24 hours, it was, I think, 10.6 million views in less than 24 hours. So you just don't know which ones are really going to take, which ones aren't going to take. But again, if it could help someone gain some confidence to actually take a lesson somewhere or take my lessons, then it's a win.
The adult learn to swim is something that is shocking to most people when they hear the percentages. What is it? 54% have little or no swimming skills globally. Is that correct?
That's correct. 97% of people who live in the Bahamas can't swim.
That's extraordinary.
7% of people in the Bahamas surrounded by water cannot swim. 97. I heard that statistic last year at World Clinic, Ask a World Clinic from some Bahama folks. And that was a crazy one. But Mel, listen to this. For adults, think about this. Tell me you're already reluctant to put on a swimsuit in front of anybody as an adult. Usually the average adult, they're afraid of the water. They've always been told not to go near the water. They're going to put a swimsuit on and walk in front of people to be what they consider. Maybe they're thinking they're going to be ridiculed, looked at, laughed at, snickered, sneered. What are you doing here? It's the same thing about people going to the gym. People who need the gym the most are intimidated by going into a gym because they're afraid of being judged. And if you can remove those barriers, and for me, it was an online function. It's just me. There's no embarrassing classes. But if you could create that environment. So if you're a person, for me, I'm terrified of rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes, I am terrified. Absolutely petrified. What's your biggest fear? A phobia. Do you have one? Do you have one?
It used to be dogs, but I love dogs. I was attacked when I was a kid.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and it freaked me out. And if I knew the dog, it was fantastic. But for a long time, I had a fear of any dog until I knew the dog. But yeah, no, but you're in Texas. Yeah, if you walk out in your front yard and you see a 7-foot rattlesnake slither through your grass, and your child's 6 years old, that'll freak you out.
Yeah, I'm petrified. So imagine you, and how old were you when you started getting past that fear of the dogs? How old?
Oh my God, it took me until I was an adult.
Okay.
To my adult years.
So now you're an adult. Let's say it's a year before that time. And you sign up for a class that's going to be dog obedience, whatever, familiarity with dogs. Strange dogs become your friends. And you sign up for that class to get over this fear. You made the call, you did the online, whatever. You pull up for the first night of class. You're in your car. What's going through your mind before you get out?
Abject fear. I am catastrophizing. I'm thinking about being bitten. My hands will be sweaty.
White knuckling.
Real fear.
But that's if you understand that's what a lot of these adults are feeling about swimming, and you could approach it from a whole different empathetic way that's caring. And the first thing I do when I have a brand new adult, they'll sit on the side of the pool. I said, first of all, what's your objective? What do you want to learn? I don't have in the water right away. Hey, hop in, hold your breath. No. I'm talking to them. Tell me what's your background. What made you sign up for this class? How did you feel when you signed up for it? How do you feel right now? I want to take them off the ledge as much as I can before I even hit anything that's swimming related. I want to see what's happening up here and what's happening in their heart. And you do that and remove those barriers. Now you start to gain some trust, and then it becomes a little belief. And once they can hold their breath and float, oh my gosh, you see some of the videos of the guys I have. They get up and it's ear to ear, beaming, smiling. So yes, I enjoy teaching kids, love teaching kids, but man, there's not much more satisfying than teaching adults because there's so much more baggage that you're trying to have to drive through. Huge accomplishments.
And then that you have 1.5 million followers on Instagram.
There you go.
Kudos to you. I was embarrassed that I didn't know it, but I thought it was really interesting. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I have a feeling where there's probably, when I go back and listen to this, I'm gonna realize that I missed a few things. And so, would you come back on?
If you want me, for sure.
All right. Well, let's have you back on. Do you have any parting thoughts?
Yeah. One of the questions I read earlier was about like my coaching philosophy, right? The philosophy. And where I'm at right now, and I think it takes coaches a ways to get there, some time to get there, is it used to be about the banners. We always were driven. We're driven folks. The banners, the championships, to win. For me now, it's more about getting invited to the wedding is a stronger motivator to me, is more important to me than any banner that's out there. So I mentioned earlier, family first. I want these relationships with these kids and with these families and with these adults I'm teaching. I want to be invited to the weddings, and it's not as much about the banners. So that's kind of where I've shifted, I think, over the years. Routed me more. Remember, thermostat, not a thermometer. I operate daily trying to be a positive influence and make someone's day better when they leave than when they walked in. And that's what really drives me.